All right, so today we're going to be talking about variables in our JavaScript coding. And the very first thing you need to make sure that you have done is that you've gone into your My North side and you've downloaded your PDF of the variable notes. If you haven't done that, go ahead and pause this until you are to that. All right, so let's talk a little bit about variables, and let's talk about what they look like, what they mean, some definitions. So the very first thing, a variable is a name or placeholder for something else. So at any time, if this is going too fast for you, you can pause it till you can get your notes. All right. So as you work through your Khan Academy on variables, what you're going to find is that the talk through is going to explain a variable as a big bucket with a name on it. So big bucket with a name. And it can be named, let me fix that. That looks a little bit messy. With a name on it. Okay. Can be named anything you want it to be, but it always needs to be defined. Okay. The bucket can be named anything, but always defined. Needs to be defined. All right, so that's a variable. Now, the value of a variable, we're going to talk about that next, okay? So what a variable's value is, it's the thing inside the bucket. Thing inside the bucket. Now remember, it's not a real bucket. That's just what they call it. So the value of the variable is the thing inside the bucket. That's how much the variable is worth. Now, the next thing we're going to look at is we're going to look at the equal sign. Now, in coding JavaScript, the equal sign means assignment. It's assigning a number to something. Assignment. Okay? You can also say gets when you're using the equal sign. Okay? It is not the same thing as in math class when your math teacher teaches you something like 3 plus 4 equals 7. So therefore 7 equals 4 plus 3. Not the same thing. Okay? So that's something you're going to kind of have to relearn, is that 3 plus 4 equals 7. Now, variable itself, okay, the formula when you're doing a variable, you would have your variable, and then you would have equals sign, and then your value. So whatever variable you create, then you would have your gets, and then the value. Okay, and we'll talk a little bit more about this in a minute. All right, and this next one, number 5, is really just a reminder that your computer is going to read the code from top to bottom. The more code we learn and the more JavaScript that we add, the more important this is going to be. That the computer will read the code from the top to the bottom. So when you're doing your variables or you're doing your code and you place things at the bottom that might not be read by the computer, you may have to rearrange things. So just remember that your computer reads the code from top to bottom. All right, now a couple of things about variable names. Variable names can begin with letters. Okay, or the symbols money sign or underscore. So those are the things that it can begin with, okay? letters or the money sign or an underline. Okay? Variables also, they can only contain letters, numbers, the dollar sign, and the underscore. Okay? Those are the only things they can contain in the variable. Okay? They can't do any other special characters or anything like that. Now, this will be important too, that they cannot begin with a number. They cannot begin with a number. Okay? So, I'm going to show you some valid examples. Of variables. Might look something like this. They might be my variable. That actually could be a variable. Okay, you could have something like leaf underscore 1. Okay, you could have something like money sign or dollar sign money 3. Okay, but remember, it cannot start with a number. So it couldn't be like 3 money dollar sign, because that starts with a number. No variables can start with a number. All right. Variable names also cannot be the same as existing variable names. Okay? Variables are case sensitive. Sorry, I skipped one. Variable names are case sensitive. Okay? So, which means if I have a variable written as x p q r t, that variable is not the same as x p q r t. Even though they have the exact same letters, they are case sensitive, just like a password. Okay? So those two aren't the same. Those two are not the same. All right. So number 9. So variables for number 9. Oops. All right. Variable names can't be the same as existing variable names. So variable names can't be the same as existing variable names. In other words, two variables can't have the same name. And so what will happen is, if you ever see this error message pop up, which will say read only with an exclamation mark, you need to pay attention, because what that most likely means, that means that you have to rename your variable. Because you most likely already have one by that name. So, renaming your variable. All right. Next thing that you need to know with your variable names, number 10, okay, is that variable names should be clear and meaningful. So what you might feel like doing is a lot of abbreviations with your variables. However, you really want to avoid trying to abbreviate things too much. So, for example, instead of having a variable for tooth size called TS, so instead of TS for a variable, all right, you want to actually use tooth size, because that's what you might be talking about if you're talking about the tooth size of something you've created. So you really want to avoid abbreviations, because the more variables you start creating, you'll forget what those stand for. So here we're also going to add avoid abbreviations. All right, now last but not least, we're going to talk about variable names and what they should use. Okay, we've already talked about the fact that you should never start a variable with a number. All right, but you should use camel case for multiple words. Now you can name your variables multiple words, and we'll look at examples in just a minute. Multiple words. Okay. But if you're doing multiple words, one, you can't leave any spaces. So like in a hashtag, you would not want to leave spaces. In a variable, you don't want to leave spaces, okay? But you want to use camel case. So for example, you would want to do something like, example would be, camel case means that you start your word lowercase and the second word would be uppercase, or vice versa. So here's an example. For like tooth size, we could do tooth size and capitalize that second word. We could do the reverse. We could capitalize tooth. And again, the next word we would want to capitalize, size. Okay. So this is camel case, where you have different cases that show you where the second word starts. Okay. You could also, if you wanted to, do it this way, where you had tooth and underscore size. But overall, most of your JavaScript coders are going to use camel case, where they have one case there and one case here, so that you can tell where the different words are. Okay, so that's it. So now that you have your notes done, you're going to need to make sure that you choose your breadcrumbs at the top. You're going to want to do your quick share. You're going to upload this to your My North side for your notes. All right, that's it.